All right, guys. So I'm going to give you a little bit of a commentary, maybe an explanation. Hopefully, it helps you to understand what you're reading and what's going on, if you have any questions about it. So the election of 1860. Well, very often is an election for president divided over an issue. This is very common when Obama ran for president. The big issue was health care. Is the government going to help pay for people's health, for people's medication and hospital bills, or are they not? And this is kind of the stance that was taken by Democrats and Republicans here, where Republicans didn't want to increase government spending. They wanted to keep spending down and not have to pay for so much for healthcare, whereas Obama and the Democrats promoted the healthcare plan, which eventually became Obamacare after he got elected president. So here in 1860, of course, the issue was slavery. So the different candidates chose their platform to run on. And in the Democrats, you see that they got divided. They could not agree on a single platform over slavery. In the North, they chose Stephen Douglas, who was the senator from Illinois, and he had this platform on popular sovereignty. Let the territories, as they become states, allow them to vote and decide what they think should be legal and not legal, right? But of course, the South was kind of fed up, right? And they just wanted to make sure that slavery was upheld. So the party was divided, and the South chose John C. Breckinridge from Kentucky, who wanted to uphold slavery and kind of see that slavery was kept legal in the territories as they became states. And you remember Abraham Lincoln's saying, which is not his original saying. It's actually an old saying. It's written down. It says, "A house that is divided against itself cannot stand." And here you see an example of that, where the Democratic Party becomes divided, and of course it does not win the election, because you have 50% of the country voting Democrats, but 25 goes to one candidate, 25 to the other, and 50% goes to Abraham Lincoln. So he won by a landslide. Now, and actually that's not true. John C. Breckinridge won all of the southern states, and Stephen Douglas only won a few of the northern states, but Abraham Lincoln won all the other northern states, which had a much greater population, much more electoral votes, so he did win by a landslide. So the house divided against itself could not stand. Now, Mr. Abraham Lincoln chose a platform to try and gain the most votes, right? Although the Republican Party was formed by abolitionists who were just tired of slavery, maybe angered by the Dred Scott decision, they took a platform that was trying to gain the most votes. It was trying to maybe give a compromise by saying, look, South, we're not going to take away your slaves. We're just going to make sure it doesn't spread to the territories. They tried to just say, we're not going to abolish slavery. We just don't want to see it spread. But the South didn't buy it, right? It was a party that was formed by abolitionists. So they did not trust the Republican Party, and they thought that with Lincoln becoming president, it would be the end of their ability to keep slaves, basically. Now, while James Buchanan was still president, he tried to keep the Union together. But the philosophical question was, if these states had joined together and formed a country by agreement, as they all had ratified the Constitution, could you then vote to leave that agreement? And you can see James C. Cannon's view here, where he says, where he tells Congress, saying that the southern states have no right to secede. But then he also says that he has no power to stop them from doing so. So maybe it's a little philosophical question about democracy. What does that mean, and to what extent should you have freedom? And of course, the South wanted their freedom to keep what they considered was their property, and Lincoln made them feel threatened, so they seceded. And as you see, not all of the states seceded right away that would join the Confederacy. There were several slave-holding states that remained part of the Union. You know, maybe they were more patriotic, but they were also closer to the North. And there were states that joined after the attack on Fort Sumner. Now, Lincoln then became president, and he takes the stance that just as the South wants to defend their property, the federal government is going to defend its property. So he says that the government of the U.S. will protect its ownings within the states. For example, the forts. And the South challenges that by force. They attack Fort Sumner. And maybe this was on purpose, maybe this was a political decision, but Lincoln kind of allows them to attack first, and it, as it says, galvanizes the people. It excites the people into action. So after the taking of Fort Sumner by the Confederates, the Northerners are outraged, and they join Lincoln in his war to keep the Union together. He calls for 75,000 volunteer troops from the nation, and he fills that order. People willingly joining the army to go and fight this war to preserve the Union. And the Civil War begins.